I'd like to welcome everyone to this introductory press conference for the fourth head coach in Princeton women's lacrosse history, Jenn Cook. To officially make the introduction, I would like to welcome Ford Family Director of Athletics, John Mack.
Thank you, Chaz, and thank you everyone for joining us here this afternoon. This is an incredible day for Princeton University, for Princeton women's lacrosse, and for the sport of lacrosse. For almost 4 decades, we've been blessed to have an exceptional leader, visionary, and coach rolling the sidelines of 1952 Stadium. But when Chris told me last fall that she was stepping down at the end of the season, I didn't want someone to follow her who would try to be Chris, because there's only one Chris Saylor. What I wanted to look for was someone who could articulate a clear vision for our program, someone who would be a proven leader, someone who understood our mission and values as an institution and as an athletic department, and someone who could appreciate the challenge of leading an elite women's lacrosse program, because that's what we are. When I took over last fall, I met with every head coach and every assistant coach who wanted to have a meeting. And when I finished the meeting with Jenn Cook and she left my office, I had a very strong sense that I had just spoken to our next women's head coach. She made that kind of impression. I was very clear that we were going to do a national search to find the absolute best person to lead our women's program, because that's what our student athletes deserve. That's what this university deserves. And we did that. And we had our pick of exceptional coaches. But at the end of the day, there is no one who's a better fit to be the next head coach of Princeton women's lacrosse than Jenn Cook. So I'm excited and thrilled to announce that she'll be our 4th ever head coach of Princeton women's lacrosse.
First, I want to thank John and the search committee. Through this whole process, they were incredible. And I also want to thank Chris Saylor, Karen Maurer, my mentors, my colleagues that have really just guided me and allowed me to have the 10 years here that have just been so memorable and have made me the coach that I am. So I'm forever grateful for that. I also want to thank my family. Every coach knows having family is super important, and I wouldn't be here without them. So thank you.
Open up to questions, either Jenn or John.
Jenn, I guess the first thing is just, what are your thoughts on following in the footsteps of a legend? I mean, what challenges does that present for you?
You know, it's interesting. I think when I was interviewing for this job and Chris initially announced in November, a lot of my friends in the lacrosse world were like, "Ooh, those are big shoes to fill." And I couldn't agree more, right? And I think what Chris has taught me is I have to coach in my own shoes, right? And lead authentically. And I think Chris has always led authentically in her coaching style, and I'm going to do the same. And so those are big shoes, and I think the traditions that she's brought here and the tradition of winning is incredibly important, and those are things that I'm going to continue to believe in and do, but of course have my own spin on it.
Jen, does the mindset change when you go from assistant to head coach?
You know, it's interesting. I've been an associate head coach now for 5 years, and I get that question a lot, and I always felt like Chris and I were very much on the same plane regarding that in terms of leadership. Chris always gave me a voice and ownership within our program to allow me to direct in recruiting, allow me to direct on field, allow me to have that voice and really lead and coach in the best version of myself. And so, yes, stepping into this role, it is a new role, but I feel like I've been prepped for a really long time. Chris is definitely a good mentor in that way. She's mentored me and pushed me to be part of different committees and do different things that I think have really stretched my coaching style and have made me a much better leader.
You said you're going to put your own spin. What changes that you're going to do, or
You know,
things you do differently?
we have thought about hiring a goalie coach. I think that's an area of the field that we've lacked in terms of attention. We all kind of split attention. Karen does a great job warming up our goalies and giving them direction along with Chris and myself. I think it's an area that needs to be a little bit more dedicated. It's such a mental part of the sport, and I think that's probably our first task is hiring somebody with that type of background. So I do think that is a little bit different of a spin. And you know, I think with keeping Karen on, that's the plan. I think we're really creative in the way that we coach. You know, we see the game really similar. We really enjoy running different variations, whether offensively or defensively. And so we could have a different look next year, both on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Absolutely. Foundationally, we really only on the offensive side of the ball had Kyla who had ever played in an NCAA tournament. So you're returning most of your offense. Next year, we have some really fantastic defenders, young ones that also had time this year. So I think they're going to continue to develop. We're returning our entire midfield. And I think we're going to surprise people. I think people are going to say you're losing your goalie, your defensive unit, essentially, and your number one career-breaking scorer. And yes, of course, those are challenges. But I also think we have recruits coming in and a young contingent of really hungry players that are ready to step into that role.
Is the transition made easier because you're staying put here at Princeton and there are returning players who know you and know what your expectations are?
Absolutely. I think the players know my coaching style. They know my leadership style. They know their expectations. They know I love hard work. I don't shy away from it. And we're super competitive. We don't, shy away from the fact that we want to win and we want to win the right way. And so I think our girls know that expectation.
I have a question for John. I think this is your first hire for coaching hire.
Second, we hired a head rugby coach in the fall.
Okay. What has the process been like for you going through the search process and finding a head coach doing this as an athletic director for the first time?
It's been interesting for me. I've been a part of a number of searches going back to when Gary Walters first hired me 22 years ago to work here. But obviously being in charge, it's different. I think for me it goes back to our values as an institution and a department. You have to pursue coaches who understand who we are as an institution because it's different here. And if coaches can't embrace that, adopt our values as their own, they're going to struggle. And so I come to the job first and foremost as an alum, someone who was a student athlete here and appreciates the student athlete experience here. And then it's about someone who, as Jen said, is an authentic coach, who is a teacher. You can't help but talk to Jen. She oozes teacher. When you don't have to know anything about lacrosse, but when you talk to her, it's just, yeah, I'd play for her. You have to have a passion that will attract student athletes. The key to our success over decades has been that we hire exceptional people who just happen to be fantastic coaches, and they attract exceptional people who just happen to be fantastic student athletes. And I think in Jen, we have an exceptional person who really the sky's the limit with our program now.
John, what about you said when you met with her, she was so impressive. What things really impressed you?
Jen is a force, I think is the best way. Her passion jumps right at you, first and foremost for the student athletes that she coaches. The way that she talks about them, the way that you can tell she loves them and cares about them as people separate from who they are as an athlete. And to me, that is first and foremost the most important thing for any coach here. But then, as I said, when you listen to her talk about the game of lacrosse, both what it has meant to her in her professional journey in her life and the opportunities it provides to specifically young women who will be a part of Princeton lacrosse. She says all of the things that you would want a Princeton coach to say, and she doesn't just say them, she believes them, and that comes across so genuinely and effortlessly, but that you just can't help but be impressed. And then for someone like me who has watched the impact that she's had over the 10 years here on our program and the success that we've had, it really was, I don't want to say it was a no-brainer because we had our pick from among some exceptional candidates, but it was really clear that she was the choice.
Jen, have you had a chance to meet with the team since you've gotten the job?
We had a Zoom earlier today, and it was just great to see their reaction. We after the season ended on Sunday, we went up to Tico's, and we were all having smoothies with the girls before they all left campus because it's a pretty quick turnaround at Princeton once your season ends and you got to move out and then reunions start. And so it's a little hectic, and I know Chris had just set up for all of us to have smoothies and kind of spend one last time together, and they all kind of knew my interview timeline. I didn't tell them, but they kind of all knew that it was happening last week, and they're like, we just want to let you know we love you, we support you, we're behind you 100%. And so they were just giving hugs, and to see their reaction today when John made that announcement over Zoom, you can't help but feel motivated and feel that support and love for this place and the belief in me, which I really appreciate. I think what makes this program exceptional is we support each other. I think it's not just 4 years where we support each other, it's a lifelong support, and that's due to Chris's legacy. We support and we're part of this family even after we graduate, and so to have that type of support from the student athletes prior to walking into that interview and knowing that type of love that they have for this place and for my coaching style, I think I went into it and I'm like, all right, cool, I got this. Like, it's going to be great. So.
You touched on it, but how would you describe Chris's influence on your development as a coach over these 10 years?
Oh my gosh, like I could talk like a full day on that. She's just so incredible as a mentor, teacher, and just a friend. She's meant so much. I think Chris and I met each other at a really important part in our career. I always say, like, I interviewed with her and she was like, so what are your plans? I was like, I think I might go to grad school. Like, I think I might just go home. She's like, no. You're meant to coach. And so, I've always talked about this, sports, it only takes one person to kind of change your trajectory in life. And Chris is definitely one of those individuals for me. I think she always saw something in me regarding my coaching style and just how we would work together. John touched on it a little bit. Like, Chris and I are foundationally have the exact same values, but we're very different people. And I think we pushed each other to be the best versions of ourselves for this place and for our players and for our alumni. And I think it's just been that type of relationship. We joke. Once John let me know that I was going to be the next head coach, I know Chris will be calling me about technology questions, definitely. But I'm sure we'll be Zooming Chris, if not weekly, every other week, to have a good laugh in the office. That's just the type of relationship that we have. So.
Any other questions? All right, congrats, Jen. Thank you very much, Jen and John. We appreciate everyone joining us today. We're going to do a jersey presentation photo op, and that'll conclude our afternoon activity.